First of all, I sent out the minutes right before the call. I'll wait to approve these minutes for the next meeting since you may not have had a chance to look at them, but I'll save that for the next meeting. So Jim, COVID-19 impact on workflow and staffing.
Okay. Well, one of my new videographers called me this evening. Fortunately, she's not working this week because her entire family came down with COVID. So I have dispatched her to the nearest CVS to get the test and treat regimen of antivirals, which my wife took and worked miraculously. So if you get any symptoms, get thee to the CVS.
She's not the one doing the public works meeting Thursday, is she?
No. Okay. That would be no. So listen.
Yeah.
So we're doing okay. We have two new videographers who came to us from NCC, Kevin and Brianna, and they're both excellent. They both went through the training. They have passed muster. They have flown solo, and tonight they're being trained on the portable camera because P&Z for some reason has chosen not to meet in 206, but meet instead in the Mather Center. They're voting on the high school lights, so they're expecting a crowd. Anyhow, they're going to be cross-trained and ready to roll, just as everything seems to be transitioning away from this format of GoToMeeting, and we're meeting back in person. There was a meeting of the RTM Rules Committee last night. They voted that the full RTM meeting in May on the budget vote is going to be in person in the auditorium, everybody masked and separated. Very few meetings are actually still occurring on GoToMeeting, and more of it's coming back to in person, and that means we have to staff up. But we're now ready to do that. I'm looking for one more trainee from NCC who should be coming our way.
At least we didn't hear too bad about having to do meetings in two formats.
How do you mean two formats?
Well, like last
you
night,
mean the hybrid meeting?
Yeah.
Not to confuse you.
Yeah, not to.
Yeah. Actually, that went fairly well. I lost a bet. I thought it was not going to work, but it seemed to work. It wasn't perfect, but so let me share the some of the data from the report that I gave to the Board of Selectmen, or at least submitted but not presented in person. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So these are the stats on Vimeo viewership. And you can see the trend line here. The dotted line is still moving up. We're averaging about a 50% mean percent viewage. Some meetings are getting much more higher percentage of viewing. But, if you're going to Vimeo, I wouldn't expect you to be watching the entire meeting. You're probably going in to cherry pick the piece that you're interested in. So those are the Vimeo stats for first quarter. Here's a comparison this year versus last year. This year are the blue graph, and last year are the yellow graph lines. And again, you can see that the trend line is going up. First quarter, there's a lot of activity, a lot of interest. The open rate on our program guide, which used to hover in the upper 30 percentiles, is now 60%. Twice as many people are actually who receive the program guide are opening it and looking at it. And I have my own theory as to why. And it's not just because they want to see what's on our Vimeo channel.
Because is it because Darien Times now costs $130 a year?
No, it's because the list of upcoming meetings for next week that I put out on Friday afternoon is more accurate than you'll find on the town web calendar. And I link to agendas as well, too, which sometimes you don't find on the town web calendar. Top viewership meetings, first quarter. There was a particular exciting planning and zoning meeting, which you might remember, where they were voting on the Parklands development, and the members of the public who were in attendance did not like the outcome of the vote and proceeded to swear a blue streak, as my mother used to say. And that seemed to draw a lot of attention. Of course, I did tweet that and let people know exactly where in the meeting the offensive language was. in case they did not want to have their sensibilities offended, but that's straight to where people went. But, I think it's also important to see the civility level at some of our meetings. People care very passionately about some of these things. So that's the quarterly report of Facebook viewership. We only get the last 90 days. And the interesting thing here, I think, is that the women, the women in our audience outnumber men by about 2-to-1, especially in the 45 to 54 age group. Not many women, teenagers watching us under the age of 21. But in the 65 plus demographic, that's me. It's more women than men because there's more women and men in that cohort, I guess, as well too. Interestingly, where are people watching? These are Facebook numbers. Darien obviously is the strongest, but Norwalk, Stamford, and even New York, the Big Apple come in with their own numbers as well too. So those are the stats that I presented to the Board of Selectmen. We had some special coverage beyond the regular meetings. We accompanied the what's called the HHR School Building Committee, the Hindley Holmes Royal School Building Committee, with the Board of Finance, took a walking tour of all of those 3 schools, and we accompanied them so that people could see the conditions that they're going to be asked to address in their rehabilitation and expansion plans. And we also did another walking tour, and I can't remember what it was, but we've been out and about in the community, going where the news happens and putting that on the air.
Did security come up this year? Or was that put to bed last year?
It did not. No, I mean, we have had times where we wanted to take that tour before, and the Board of Education asked us not to do a continuous stream tour walkthrough of the school for security reasons. I still edited this year as well too, so it's hard to tell how they got from point A to point B. They aren't. It's not the corridors they're looking to redo. It's the classrooms or the library or something else. So I focused on that as well too. Any questions on programming before I move on to?
You pretty much got your set amount, additional non-government programming. You've got pretty much your set lineup and your consistent contributors.
Yeah, I'm still running all the stuff from the Darien Men's Association, which is being shot by Mr. Wheeler up at the DCA in a hybrid format as well too. The library seems to have backed off on posting a fair amount of its in-person seminars. I think partly because some of the people who are presenting don't want to be recorded. But anything that they put up on their DarienLibrary.tv website is fair game for us to be able to use. They're actually encouraging us to use it. Sean, welcome.
Oh, sorry I'm late.
No worries. So just going over the report. So yeah, I'm still doing a mix of Men's Association, Darien Library, Greenwich Men's Association has an excellent speaker series. I'm still getting some stuff from the National Press Foundation, which is kind of interesting, and some of the other historical societies around Connecticut as well too. At this point, having done this now for a year and a half, we have a library of evergreen programs. That means undated programs. Probably 200 shows. So I can change the rotation every day in the off-peak hours, non-prime time hours, and people are going to see something every single day. I'm not convinced anybody is necessarily watching, but I enjoy the exercise of programming the station, laying in the shows and the bumpers and the PSAs and the teases and all the rest of that stuff. So until I'm told otherwise, it's the cable channel that brought us to the party, as Mike likes to say. And while Vimeo seems to be the place of most people, go looking for something very specific, I'm still in the broadcasting business. I think we need to keep Channel 79 alive and well. We are still doing more programming than any government channel in Area 9. Would you agree with that, Mr. Deaver, as the other Darien rep?
That's correct.
Yep. So they look to us for leadership. And I keep kind of nudging them, saying, there's no reason not to be broadcasting overnight, aside from laziness on your part to not want to program that. I mean, why not? Who knows? People watch overnight. I think one of our surveys showed we had a surprisingly large audience overnight of people that couldn't sleep and for whom we were better than Sominex. Watch a little planning and zoning committee and you'll nod right off.
But I'll tell you, if you're a history lover, some of those programs from at the Darien Men's Association last week, we had the guy who wrote the book on Madoff, who was the only one that Madoff talked to, and the history of newspapers in the Civil War. I mean, if you're a history lover, there were a lot of people just out promoting books, but they do a terrific job. It's really interesting if you enjoy history.
They do. There's some good shows there. And you'll see on the program guide, I also list what's new that we're adding this week to the mix as well, too. Usually list the DMA. They had the woman from Palmer's last week who did a presentation on she's fifth generation, et cetera, et cetera. We took out some of her video because it was a program length commercial in and of itself, and we're not allowed to do that. I'd like to segue into technology update, and it kind of bears on what we've been talking about in terms of programming as well, too. We had a problem in one of the meetings of the Board of Selectmen. There was an executive session called at the beginning of the meeting, and our camera operator quite correctly lowered the volume on these mixers over here, the master controls, and it killed the sound. And he had a slide up that basically said they're in executive session. And I happen to be watching at home. I do tend to watch the channel when live meetings are being shot and send the occasional suggestion to people if they're just leaving everything in security camera mode and with one shot. And I kind of heard something vaguely in the background. It was like well, it was loud enough that somebody could hear it, and they were listening in on the executive session. And this only was discovered when a concerned friend texted a member of the Board of Selectmen in the middle of the meeting and said, "You're on the air." I won't tell you exactly what happened at that point, but the fallout was that we ascertained that this beautiful, can you see this board here? This simple to use, 20 channel board was leaking. And our tech came and he looked at it, and I showed him exactly what we had done, what pots we had lowered, which ones were lowered, and he agreed that there was still leaking, and he could not figure out why. So this is what the board looks like from a different angle, from the master controls here. And you can see that the problem with this board, as large as it is there are just too many ways of making a mistake. There are too many knobs, too many equalizers, too many pan pots. And, Dave, God bless him, had to come in and mark with the black magic marker. These are the buttons that should be left down. Because when people couldn't figure out what was going on with the sound, they just start pushing buttons. And it was impossible to get back to normal. So we ripped all that equipment out. And it is, I don't know where it is now. It's on its way to Davy Jones' locker at some point. And we've replaced it with this beautiful, simple device. One of my camera operators who was using it for the first time last night had never seen anything but, a board like this. He's always used sliders. And he said, "What do I do with these knobs?" I said, "Well, you you turn them up one at a time. There's a little guide on the top here that says this is the left dais, the center dais, the right dais, etc. And you turn them up. Oh, so yeah. This is designed to be foolproof and so simple to use that we're not going to have that problem again. So we used part of our equipment grant. We still have more money coming. These were not expensive. I think it was, I don't know, $800 or something like that for all these mixers, plus installation and stuff. So we're good to go. That particular problem has been solved with audio. And then, we're working with, Mike, who's on the RTM Rules Technology Subcommittee. And we received, we didn't receive, the town received one of the ARPA grants from the American Rescue Plan for, how much was it? $90,000?
Yeah, 90,000. Yeah.
$90,000 to replace, upgrade, and do all kinds of elaborate things with the audio visual system in the auditorium. And Kate Bush, the town administrator, has included myself and Mike on a steering committee on this project, because obviously whatever they do, we're going to need a feed from, or we need to be able to, contribute to as well too. We're still waiting to get the specifics about what that's going to entail, but I think it's going to involve large video monitors, an enhanced audio system, and direct feed from a video projector, which is probably going to be mounted on the front of the balcony facing the screen and projecting onto the screen. So we'll be able to get a feed out of that, of whatever the video is, if there's any audio, and somebody will be able to present down from the main part of the auditorium, like presenting to the RTM. They can show a PowerPoint slide. It'll show up on the screen. It'll show up on our feed, much as the monitors do in room 206.
And there's also belief that hybrid meetings are here for the future, and this will give more flexibility if they have a speaker that they want to bring into the auditorium, that they'll have the equipment to do it.
Right. And it's designed so that it can be used, in the summer if they're doing summer camp and it's too hot for the kids to sweat around out in the yard. They can bring them in, show them a movie. They can show them a movie. They don't have to, wheel out a keystoning projector set up about 6 feet in front of the screen. So the town's going to issue an RFP for that. And we're going to make sure that it includes our needs as well too. No timeline on when that installation is going to be.
But Carrie, every company in America must be putting in hybrid solutions in every meeting space. And have you had many meetings where someone's in the office and you're at home and they're having a hybrid meeting, or is it just?
I think more and more are going to start, but we're still mostly remote, but they have reworked some of the conference rooms to accommodate that already.
Yeah, every company's trying to figure out this, because it's going to be part of the future of Zoom meetings or whatever, or Microsoft work or whatever, are going to be part of corporate life, and they're also going to be part of the things we're going to cover.
Mike, what does you discussed this last night at RTM Rules? What's the legislature doing on that? The current rule expires at the end of the week, and then what's next?
The House has passed it. The Senate adjourned, so they have to do it by the end of the month, of whether or not virtual meetings will be allowed in the future for voting.
For voting.
For your vote to count, to show do you have to offer? Right now, we have to provide equipment to somebody to be able to see any meeting. So you might put them in the hallway in town hall, is what it requires. But it's whether or not they're going to. And then there was some either confusion or disagreement at the meeting of was it to create the obligation that every meeting will be done virtually? Or will it be, you are allowed to offer a virtual option? That obviously says two different things. So one is an obligation and the other is you have the right to do it. The general belief was that they will continue to give towns the right to do it, but not the obligation to do it.
That makes sense.
So that's why that's why with the budget meeting, and there are 16 members in every district, and each district will have 55 seats for their 16 members at the so there'll be plenty of room to spread out. But it's an important meeting. The budget meeting is always important, but the next two meetings are important because it's the June meeting is because of this screwed up state thing where they caught the guy from the state shaking down the bigger towns that get the bigger kickback, get the bigger state aid, or some schools are, the state.
For schools to instruction. Right.
The guy was suggesting consultants for those towns to use. And so he's no longer in that position, but we have to put in just like we had to do for Ox Ridge, approve with no plans what the cost is of the 3 schools and 3 separate budgets by June 30th, or wait another year. And it wasn't controversial, but when we did Ox Ridge, it's just, we voted $63 million off of a little bit more sophisticated than a back of an envelope. And they're going to come in on time and under budget. But we have to do the same thing now for the 3 elementary schools in June. So the next 2 meetings are going to be important, and who knows if there'll be a real estate purchase that we might have to consider.
Island or two.
Yeah, by an island or two.
Any questions about the technology or programming?
Any suggestions?
Don't be shy.
More history is always good for me. Bring
More
in those
history.
speakers.
Just out of curiosity, the town is 2 months into the bi-weekly newsletter. Have any of you
The
received?
first Select Ones newsletter.
Because we didn't. Actually, Jamie, going back to my first year, wanted to hire a part-time PR person. But have any of you seen the newsletter that you can go online to subscribe to and you'll get in your inbox? You did it. I did it. I haven't gotten it yet. I've subscribed twice, but I haven't gotten it yet. So none of you have seen it yet.
I subscribed, but haven't gotten any.
Yeah, because
That's quite a poll you just took there, Mike.
how many pay 130? How many get the Darien Times?
I don't pay $130 for.
Yeah,
Trust me.
I was shocked when that they've raised the price to $130, $250 a week for it. They are adding more news, but it's just syndicated stuff from the Hearst network within the state.
Yeah.
But one of our projects has got to be engagement, and to get out to the viewers rather than hoping that there's some issue, whether it's Parklands or something with the Board of Education or some issue that gets them involved in the short term and not on a continuous basis of knowing what's going on in town, because the town is going to change dramatically in the next 3 years.
Absolutely agree. And I wish if you would all other advisory board members, please put your thinking cap on and, send me just your wildest ideas about what we can do on the cheap in terms of more marketing or promotion or something. Maybe we should have a booth at the summer sidewalk sales. I know that the ladies that do the Now We're Talking Darien podcast are going to be there. They are. They've
I don't know.
told me they're paid for a table. They're flogging their blog. They're flogging their blog.
Their podcast is
Or
good.
their podcast. Sorry. Yeah, it's not bad too. Is anybody interested in helping sit at a table and
Yeah, I'll do it.
Carrie? God bless you. Wheeler?
I don't even know when the sidewalk sales are.
Oh, it's when it's hot and you want.
I know when it's hot, but
I'll get the dates. Let
give
me,
me the dates.
with permission of the board.
I rang
will
the bell. I
explore-
rang the bell for the Santa Claus when we replaced the Salvation Army.
God bless you.
Oh.
With the board's permission, I will investigate what would be involved with getting a table. There may be some monetary issue, but I will find out. Okay. Is that okay?
But
By acclamation, thank you very much.
but engagement is our biggest issue, because if you really look at, there are actually some meetings. I said to Jim, we have one. I know where this is being recorded, so I won't say it, but we have one chair that should be. They should have their own television show. They are so funny. And also the meetings are interesting too.
Now you got me guessing. I'm not sure who that is.
I sent you. I said this person deserves their own show. It
Oh,
was just
okay.
hysterical. But if you have ideas, Sean, Carrie, what can we do in engagement? You've already met with the PR woman.
I have, and we had a deal for a while. I would promote their new newsletter, and in that newsletter, she would promote TV79, and that lasted 1 week. And when we did not make the next cycle of newsletter, I did not promote her in the program guide, because what's fair is fair. Now, it's not exactly a huge audience that we're missing by not being in the newsletter, apparently, judging by you shakers and movers, who a couple of you knew about the newsletter but haven't necessarily figured out how to get it. And you're not missing a whole lot quite yet, but I think it's an important first step that the first select woman realized she's got to be more proactive, given the demise of the $130 a year Darien Times. There's nobody doing local reporting in this town anymore. And if she has to go direct to consumer or direct to voter or direct to resident with a newsletter, great. That's fine. She has yet to ask for a weekly program on the air.
Well, we'll worry about that.
But I think that she deserves credit for, trying to keep the populace involved.
But
It is a lot going on at Town Hall. And that's why we need to help promote the fact that TV79 is here. I'm not completely objective about my feelings about Hearst, having written for them and left them several months ago. Not a lot of love lost there, but I do deeply miss local news coverage in this town. And it's not in the Darionite, and it's not in the Patch. It used to be in the Darien Times until Susan Schultz left, and it's not there anymore. I mean, just take a look at what's in that paper. And if you know what's on TV79, they're not watching our meetings. They're covering openings of Vietnamese restaurants. That's news, right? News you can use. I agree.
Could we just leave flyers at the newcomers clubs, meetings, or literally just put flyers in mailboxes, we have interns this summer. I mean, maybe we just have to do old fashioned, self-promotion.
Thank you for mentioning interns. I neglected to mention that we are going to have an intern joining us. Actually a student, I think he's finishing his sophomore year. He's originally from Darien. He worked on DAF media. He has gone off to college, and he wants to come back and work with us over the course of the summer to get some more experience shooting meetings and doing production. I don't want to turn him into a complete gopher and, distributing flyers and stuff like that. in the heat of the day, but he might work a table at the sidewalk sale.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not against doing it myself. I'm just.
No, I
you know,
understand. No, I think you make a good point. I
Yeah.
think there's a more strategic way of doing that. And my thought has long been to reach out to the real estate community.
Yeah.
And introduce us to them and let them know that we are small, low on the list of things that they can use to sell the town. But when people, come to town, let them know that we exist. I don't believe there's a welcome wagon anymore. I don't think that exists. But obviously, reaching people who have come to town for the first time
Mhm.
is important.
Yeah, and
So-
we are the youngest and fastest growing town in the state.
Mhm.
And
Really?
so the budget meeting is May 9th, and through the beauty of TV79, you can watch it later on demand. But it's a very important meeting, not just to vote on what the budget's going to be next year, but how the budget was arrived at and the intricacies of how the budget was created is important to understand. It's not just how they got to the number. It's not just the number, it's how they got to the number that we're going to be paying in taxes.
Jack Davis, who's the chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee, does a really thorough job of explaining this stuff so that even an arts major can understand it, let alone all the finance guys in town.
Yeah. So does anybody else?
I was going to say, when you said budget update on the agenda, our budget request has moved forward unscathed, I believe, through the entire process. So after the RTM approves the budget, as it may, I probably will, May 9th, I think we are well capitalized for videographers and continuing on into next year. I have prepared a succession plan for myself, although I'm not quite ready to hang up my headphones. But one of our, I guess she's been with us for 3 or 4 years now, Alyssa Diamond, I have trained to do everything that I know how to do in terms of programming, loading to Vimeo, editing. She's a whiz at video editing and stuff. So I just wanted to let you know, if my ankle injury turns into anything more dire, you don't have to call, just on Dave, and Mike to fill in. But everything will continue along nicely should anything untoward happen to me. Isn't that reassuring?
Well, but and add the with your current ailment, if we did not have Castus, we would be up a creek without a paddle.
If we didn't have Castus over the last 2 years, we would have been showing a lot of community calendar and a very short rotation of that wouldn't change very often at all.
And Achilles in a boot.
Achilles in a boot.
Would have
Yeah.
not simplified walking up those stairs.
Oh no, I'm not walking those stairs.
So thank goodness we made the investment in the Castus.
Yes. Well, and for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which was, it's complete remote control capabilities. And it is just a joy to work with. Even with the 200 evergreen shows that I mentioned that we have banked over the past 2 years, I think I was looking today, we have scraped 7% of that device's memory. So plenty more to come.
I'm telling Jim can run this, he can run the station from Florida, Arizona, any of those tax-free states.
I'm not going anywhere.
Uh,
Feet first is the way I'm leaving here. So any other, I guess we covered the budget. Anything else where we're on the new business now? I don't want to keep people longer than necessary.
Any other questions?
Just on the marketing side, I know we had dabbled, or you guys had take some money from your wallet and done Facebook ads. Did that yield anything or no?
Yeah.
It helped a bit.
It helped,
think.
it helped a bit. There was now we have one of the members of the ethics committee on our committee. But it was of using town money to advertise what was the ethics of using town money to advertise. Jim and I were using our money to advertise, not the town's money to advertise. And what
It
is
was a donation.
Yeah, it's a donation, but that is advertising on Facebook. What do you believe the ethics are of using our budget to quote advertise certain meetings on Facebook?
You asking me as a member of
No,
the
I'm
Board of
asking. I'm
Ethics?
asking the board.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I've struggled with the answer, and that's why I was using my own money. I mean,
Well, there's also a wider platform, like and I specifically mentioned Facebook because I feel like our station is appealing to probably the older generation on social networking versus the younger.
Yep.
And I think that platform is uniquely suited. So there's a wider question, like, is that the platform, and then if that is, then you go about it in an organic way or a paid way, right? So there's sort of choices there. So it's a larger question.
Yeah, and it's funny because I followed them, their announcements of their contributions to local newspapers, and and tried unsuccessfully to get their attention to say, hey, we're doing live meetings, give free put us in your local news listing. But apparently that initiative that Facebook started where you could get local news on one of your buttons has failed. It's not as bad as CNN Plus, but it has not
Easy.
but it has not been successtional in terms of
Yep.
people. Do any of you, how many of you use Facebook on occasional? So you use it
Every day.
So Carrie, do you use it, Facebook at all?
Yes, I do.
And so how often, and what about you, Robert? You use it? Do you have an account? Does your wife use it? You're muted. How many of you use their news feed for local news or even knew that it existed?
We have a Facebook page. I was just looking at the page itself, and it's got 379 followers. Every program that we put up on Vimeo gets transposted to YouTube and to Facebook. And I see it coming up in my feed on a rotating basis. So, just looking through my usual news feed, it'll say, here's the RTM Rules Committee meeting. And it's there and it starts to play. And I mean, for the people that follow us, we're doing everything except sitting them down and propping their eyelids open and saying, this is like Clockwork Orange, watch the Planning and Zoning Committee.
I just wonder what would happen.
I take your point. I take your point about, reaching a younger audience. Dennis, maybe you could assign TV79 watching, or is there anybody that teaches civics in the high school anymore?
Law and government. Yeah, we do a local government. I normally talk about the RTM and being on it, but certainly do a introduction to local access program.
You should make them watch the budget meeting on the 9th.
Yeah.
Strong suggestion to watch it. It may be long and boring, but
It is.
they have every.
Sure, I'll be their
have
favorite
every
teacher
interest.
the next day.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they have every interest in watching that because it's going to determine their school's future.
As they go off to college, they're out mentally.
Their parents should be.
Sean,
I know they're mentally.
Sean, does DAF doesn't do Facebook much to advertise at all, do they? It's just organic.
No, it's all organic. I mean, I just wonder, like, from a digital perspective, if it sounds like stuff is already going to Facebook, but if the board members were willing to share it, like how much we could amplify just post, forget advertising, just through our networks. Like I'm thinking Facebook and LinkedIn, just share the recordings to see if we get any type of lift. We could just do it as an experiment.
But I didn't hear any opinions on whether you agreed with me that using our budget money to promote a operations planning council meeting or a department heads meeting or a budget meeting is an appropriate use of our dollars.
So I think, so here's how I could spin it either way, right? For me, if the intent of using the advertising, here's the thing, the digital marketing tools, because they're a profit center, are great. Like on Facebook, it's getting harder. And I'm not like an expert in this, but I know for a fact, I could make sure that any paid ads are going first and foremost people who live in Darien, maybe of a certain age group, having certain interests. Like if we view our job to give people access to things, that's an extension of giving them access and making it readily available to them. So I could argue that till the cows come home, right?
Stop there. That'll be fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to give the con.
Yeah.
Robert, what do you think?
I don't really understand. I don't use Facebook. I use it for my Quest Oculus stuff, but I don't just normally, but my wife is on it all the time. And I know my family's on it all.
Ask her, did Parks and Rec, as blowing the socks off their budget, I don't know if they've either added a lot of new programs or they've raised their rates, but that they've been the hero in revenue generation, which meant they've had to go back and spend a lot more to support all the programs but did they ever pay for Facebook ads to promote Parks and Rec events?
Okay, I'll ask.
Yeah.
Dennis and Carrie, do you have any opinion?
Well, first, I just want to say, do you think Parks and Recs is doing so good because of COVID? I mean, everybody needed to have an outlet.
I think that.
Yeah, their enrollment has almost doubled, they said.
Right. I mean, I think that had a lot to do with it.
So they're bursting at the seams.
Versus spending the money in the budget. I mean, how do we decide what? I'm not against it, but how would we decide which things we're going to promote?
Well, there are certain meetings that have a budget ramification, and we don't do we carry the Board of Education meetings, but we don't produce the Board of Education meetings. So we would never advertise against a Board of Education meeting because that's not really our intellectual content. It's the Board of Education's.
It's not our production.
We just play it. Dennis, what do you think?
I mean, I was thinking I'm on Twitter and that's, I see TV79's posts there. And the thing that I think, I don't know how you would do this, but it's not so much about advertising the channel as getting somebody to subscribe to the email chain, to the Twitter feed, to the Vimeo updates, because that's to me the biggest thing. You're not going to get them to watch one meeting. What you really want is them to get the updated Twitter posts about which meeting they do want to watch or something like that. So I would say whatever we do, the target way of announcing it or getting it would be to put the Twitter handle, to put the Vimeo subscribe, the
Darien TV79.com.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that at the sidewalk sale, if we're handing out a flyer, if we're doing a mailer, it really should just be those things,
QR codes. Just put a QR code for,
Sure.
Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. Here's how to get the program guide. I mean, I keep it really simple and accessible. I'm just looking at our Twitter feed, which automatically sends a new notice every time something gets loaded to Vimeo. So as soon as it's up on Vimeo, it shows up on Twitter with a link to the Vimeo. We only have 671 followers there. I mean, it's not huge. The program guide has 1,130. They're probably many of the same people, maybe twice. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it also, you can amplify with Twitter though, to the point of, oh, if there was a big meeting, you can retweet,
Yeah.
And so I think that, and to that end, I don't know if Facebook ads work that way, but the ability for somebody else to do the legwork for you in terms of advertising, somebody in town saw this and then they share it with their 4 friends and they're just sharing the meeting. But then it's like, oh, I didn't know that TV79 had a Twitter,
Yeah.
So
Maybe we should offer a bonus for retweets.
We'll
start
see-
astroturfing,
We'll see what Mr. Musk, what changes Mr. Musk makes. Well, thank you all for getting together with us on another quarter. And I think our next scheduled meeting is, I think sometime it's the week after Jim's quarterly report
Right.
to the department heads meeting. So
Probably July.
July 26th.
yeah, so I'll see y'all, but we may say more of you when we'll find out when the sidewalk sales are, and if anything happens, we'll update you, but we'll see you in July, and thank you for your advice, and maybe we'll start promoting some meetings on the budget meetings and the next 2 RTM meetings. Maybe we'll promote those on Facebook and see what happens.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
goodbye.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, we're only supposed to say, are there no negative votes? That's the way we're not supposed to do a show of hands. Is there any negative votes about adjourning? Anybody abstaining? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
You.
Bye.
Mike.
Take care.
Stay safe.
Bye.